Hey guys, it's Britt. Tonight I'm jumping on to go over the video that Josh from Dad Challenge podcast just posted discussing some recent updates about Myka Stauffer. I wanted to share my thoughts, so if you're interested, please keep watching. Alright guys, so before we get into this video, I did want to put a little disclaimer in the beginning of the video just to say that this was an interview that Josh did with someone who is very close to the Stauffers. Everything in this video is alleged. I didn't hear it with my own ears, but I have a great deal of trust in Josh, and I think that his integrity and his knowledge of the situation with the Stauffers is something that I put all of my trust in. I don't believe that he would just come out with info that is not factual, so that's just my personal opinion, but let's get started. I fully support Dad Challenge podcast and how he has kept Myka and the whole Stauffer situation at the forefront on his channel. I've made a video before defending him, for continuing to make these videos, even though a lot of people are saying, okay, at this point you're beating a dead horse, but I believe that there are certain things that need to continue to be talked about, or people will forget and they will move on. And this is a situation that I personally believe nobody should move on from. It should be, front and center, just like it was when it first happened back in the spring. So I will say I have sort of sat back and watched the content from creators that I believe in. One of the few is Dad Challenge podcast. I made a video sometime over the summer basically coming to his defense because he was getting a lot of slack for continuing to talk about the Myka and James situation, and basically people saying, well, you're only using their name to grow your own channel. And while I do think that there are some channels that overdo it discussing other people, in this situation, I think that it is completely fine with me. I think it's amazing. If he is going to get bigger, it's because people like him and they like the opinions that he comes out with regarding these really sensitive subject matters. So it has been a little while since I have made a video on Myka, but I figured after watching this video, it would be a good time to react to it, tell you guys kind of my thoughts, and also give you guys a little update regarding Lilly brush. I have a good one, so I'll save that for the end of the video. But let's get started. If you haven't watched this video, it will be linked in my description box, and I'm just going to basically go through it with you guys. I'm not going to be showing it, but I will be telling you guys kind of the key takeaways that he discusses and my thoughts on them. So the title of this video is More Bombshells About James and Myka from a Close Source. Obviously the source wants to remain anonymous, which I completely understand. And it says, I can't believe Myka would say that. Myka is a huge narcissist, which has been proven time and time again by her actions. And just when you think that you've heard it all, there's more secrets uncovered and more people come forward with these stories of things that she's done over her lifetime, especially since she's had children. I do think that before she had kids, she was still a narcissist, but I do believe that once she started having kids, it really made her do just like a complete 180, in my opinion. So the first point that he hits on is regarding Kova. So Kova is Myka's daughter, and it's her oldest daughter. Myka has been to hold Kova as sort of a pawn, hold Kova over the father and stepmother's head, and their relationship is not this healthy co-parenting, let's go on a lunch date with our kid, everything is sunshine and rainbows. She makes it seem like everything is great and we're co-parenting and we're, great at raising our daughter. But I believe that things have come out, you know, obviously, that prove that to be false. And I just want to share a little bit of my very personal opinion when it comes to parents using their kids as pawns. I come from a divorced household. My parents divorced when I was 1 year old, so I have no memory of them actually cohabitating and living under the same roof. And I, without going into too much detail because I want to be very careful with this, I have been that kid who's been used as a pawn, and I've been used in a way where, you know, there were certain things put in my mind about my dad that were completely false. And I know that unhealthy relationship of, oh, well, you're not going to see your daughter, or, oh, your dad's a bad guy for this reason. And it's just complete and utter. They're just lies. But why are you telling the kid that? It's to turn them against the other parent so that they want to stay with you. I also see this a lot with materialistic objects where, you know, I'm speaking from personal experience, but the parent who wants to turn the kid against the other parent will use toys and money and maybe even vacations and all of these monetary things in order to make living with them fun. You have to think, you're a kid. You're not thinking, okay, well, maybe my mom is trying to turn me against my dad. You don't think about that when you're a little kid. You think, well, when I'm at my mom's, I have all these toys and we don't have any rules and I can eat ice cream for breakfast and everything's fun and, you know, sunshine and lollipops. And as a kid, you don't know how to decipher that maybe this parent is actually trying to turn me against the parent who actually has my best interest front and center. So I say that to just let you guys know, everyone feels this way, but to use your kid as a pawn is despicable and there's just no reason for it. Don't try to brainwash your child or punish the other parent by saying you're not going to see your kid. Now, if you're saying you're not going to see your kid because you actually know that at the other parent's house there's really bad stuff going on and all of that kind of stuff, that's one thing. But if you're just doing it out of spite or out of jealousy, that makes my blood boil. Second thing that really pissed me off was that there's an update in this video given from the very close source to Josh that James and Myka have gotten a new dog. If you guys don't know, I am a huge advocate for animals, but specifically dogs. I have a dog myself. Some of you might know his name is Axel. He is the light of my life and I will do absolutely anything for my dog. But that being said, I have just as much passion and fire in my heart to see other dogs treated fairly. And I just think that dogs should be able to live their best quality of life and just be loved and hugged and paid attention to and, you know, taken on long walks and be surrounded by human interaction as much as possible. I am that person. They have rehomed, I believe, 5 dogs previous to getting this German Shepherd. So you've rehomed your child, you've rehomed 5 dogs, and now you're gonna bring a new dog into the house. And like Josh said, German Shepherds are very difficult to train. I do think that they are good dogs, but if you have a misbehaved German Shepherd, you can't just bring this little German Shepherd into your house and think that it needs no training whatsoever. And James and Myka especially seems like she doesn't want to put effort in anywhere unless it's getting paid to do so. I'm pissed. I'm pissed that they got a dog, and I don't think that they deserve to have animals. I don't, in my personal opinion, I don't think they deserve to have kids, because You can't just rehome something when you get tired of it. The live stream that I did last night, we talked a little while about dogs, and you know, it was just such a reminder. Like I was telling you guys in that video, when you get a dog, it's all fun and games when you're, you know, getting the puppy. What kind of puppy do I want? Or if you go to the shelter, which dog do I want? And then you buy the toys and the treats, and all of that is fun and games. But when shit hits the fan and you need to make sure that your dog is getting walked, you know, more than enough during the day. If you have a full-time job, you have to consider, okay, how am I going to make sure that he gets a walk in the middle of the day so that he's not home for 8 to 10 hours? You know, vet bills, vaccines you can kind of plan for because you know when they're due. But what if, you know, God forbid, I'm going to knock on wood anyway, what if something happens and it's a Tuesday afternoon and your dog isn't feeling well and it needs medical attention? You're going to have to make sure that you have those funds set aside to get your dog attended to. And I know that the financial aspect of it probably isn't a big deal to someone like Myka and James because they are still generating revenue, unfortunately, off of James's channel. But it just pisses me off because Myka Stauffer treats living things, whether that's dogs, you know, people, children, whatever it is, she treats them like everything's disposable. Like, I'm tired of you now, I'm going to throw you away and just move on with my life. And that's just not how things work. You can't just play with something until you get bored of it and then throw it in the trash and move on with your life. That's not how life works. But we're also talking about a narcissist here. I think in her mind, she's just in complete denial that that's not how the world works. The next thing that Josh goes over is the fact that Kova never told her dad or her stepmom that H was behaving badly or being mean to her. And I think that is a really good point because I think with kids, they, based on what I have seen, granted, I'm not a mom, but I did work in daycare for a few years and I've been around my fair share of kids. I'm not an idiot when it comes to children. I do think that with something like that, I do think that it would have come up in a conversation. Now, some of the darker things that children unfortunately and tragically go through sometimes, I don't think that those subjects come up in conversation. But if H was being mean or, you know, kicking her or not sharing or anything remotely mean, I do think that she would have brought that up at one point or another. It's not like H was living in the house for 6 months and it was just this little itty bitty time span. It was a prolonged period of time. So I do think that there were plenty of opportunities for her to bring this up if it was really that much of an issue. That's another good point that Josh made a little earlier in the video, was that Myka could have really used her platform and, you know, the income that they were making off of YouTube to really take care of H and get him the best care and take her subscribers along for the journey of him seeing specialists and, you know, maybe having a sensory room in their massive McMansion over there in Ohio. But it's like what I said earlier. Instead, she wanted to just say, okay, I'm done. I'm washing my hands of you. You just don't do that to people. And you definitely don't do it to your family, let alone your child. You know, I don't know, like her lack of effort. I think that she has a huge lack of empathy. And I think she has a massive, massive hole where compassion is supposed to be in her heart and soul. I don't think that compassion or empathy exists in the Myka Stauffer, you know, setup. Let's talk about her burning bridges with people who she wanted to work with when she was small. If they said no, and then came back to her and offered, to do a sponsorship or whatever, or a collaboration, she would say, no, it's too late now. As a small creator myself, there's been a few different opportunities that I inquired about, and they said, your following is too small. And I said, okay, thank you so much. Maybe we'll talk in the future. If any of those companies ever come back to me in a year or in 5 years or whatever and say, we really like your growth, we like what you've done, do you want to work with us? I would work with them. I'm not just going to act like, oh, well, you didn't want me back then, you can't have me now. Like, that is so much like exhibit A of what a narcissist does. So this next part, huge disclaimer, this is none of our business, and I will echo what Josh said. However, I am going to put my opinion out there because the source that he interviewed, I do believe, is actually very close to the Stauffers, and I don't think that this is just like being pulled out of thin air. Allegedly, Myka is trying to have another baby. She's trying to get pregnant again, and I think that Josh is spot on when he says that this could be Myka's ticket to come back to YouTube and just ask for people's sympathy because now she's pregnant. And maybe she thinks people won't come for me that hard because I'll be pregnant, and, stress and pregnancy are not good when they're coexisting. If she does this and she comes back and makes a YouTube video and says, I'm pregnant, we have a new dog, this is my new chapter, let's wipe the slate clean, I believe that she will be dragged so badly. I do unfortunately think that there are a group of people who just believe in forgiveness to such a degree that they will welcome her back. However, I think that the large majority of people on YouTube are sitting here waiting for her to try to come back. And if she does it through a pregnancy announcement video, or even if she makes a couple of videos and then announces that she's pregnant, I do not believe that that will go well for her. But I also think that we're at a point where she is tired of not making money on YouTube. So she might just take the gamble and go down that route and hope that it works in her favor. But I do not think that it will go very well. And she'll put out videos and she's going to have her comments off and her like to dislike ratio, turn off. Nobody wants to work with her anymore. I think it's time for her to get a job and move on. And I understand that people in their own community do not like them, rightfully so. Allegedly, they do have bodyguards at their house sometimes. I don't think that it's a round-the-clock thing, but James and Myka in their town are pretty much enemy number one. Nobody likes them. You can't go run errands when everyone hates you. Maybe it's time for them to sell their house and move somewhere else, and both of them take day jobs, because I do not believe that Myka coming back to YouTube announcing a pregnancy is going to work out very well for her. Going back to the narcissism thing, this is something where you can look at it and say, okay, I'm looking at this in this light, but someone that's a narcissist doesn't think that they've done anything wrong. So for her, coming back and announcing a pregnancy probably sounds like a really great idea. Okay, let's talk about James being unhappy. Allegedly, supposedly, James is heavily medicated because he is unhappy. I don't want to say the D word because it was not used in this interview that Josh got, but do with that what you will. He's unhappy and he's heavily medicated. This video specifically is sort of making me look at James a little bit differently. While I do think that he is just as responsible as Myka is for being complacent and allowing all of this to unfold and rehoming H and, you know, going on the vacation and all of this stuff, I believe that he might just be one of the, I don't want this to come off in the wrong way. He might just be one of those sore losers who finds a pretty girl and will just take a back seat and do any and everything just to make sure that he doesn't lose that girl. And I know for a lot of people that don't look at relationships that way, it's hard to even fathom just sitting back and following your partner's, you know, guide to life, even if it involves really bad decisions. But he might just be one of those guys. He's so afraid to lose Myka. He's so afraid to, you know, not be living in the house that they're living in with his kids, that he just took a seat and allowed it to happen. And now he is really feeling the repercussions of, you know, this horrible decision that they made. His channel is certainly feeling the impact. Their household income is most definitely feeling the impact. Josh did some numbers and he thinks that they are making from James's revenue around $300,000 a year. Now, if you compare that to when they were doing normal videos on YouTube, everything was happy-go-lucky, they had sponsorships and all of that, they were easily making over $1 million a year. So for someone to go from over $1 million down to $300,000, they have this big house, they have expensive cars, they have all these kids that they need to pay for, you know, or take care of. That is a massive jump as far as your cash flow goes. I will say it's unfortunate that James is unhappy, and hopefully he's seeing professionals and dealing with it however he thinks he needs to deal with it. But it's like what I said, I just don't think that they're going to be able to come back to YouTube as a family. So is he going to continue doing the car stuff and just play that as long as it can go? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I think that James has much more of that. When you compare it to Myka, I think he has a lot more compassion for what they did being wrong. But that's also what happens when you take a back seat and you don't stand up for what's right, and you don't, you know, communicate with your partner saying, hey, this is wrong. Like, this is a horrible idea. Let's use our platform for good. We're making really good money. Let's make sure that this little guy is taken care of. Something else that has come out is supposedly James is now sort of being disowned by his family, which is really unfortunate, but I think it speaks to the fact that nobody can stand being associated or around Myka. To be around someone who is so self-centered and leaving such a path of destruction anywhere that they go. Like, I don't care if it's like part of my boyfriend's family or whatever it is. If this situation was happening in my own family, I also wouldn't want anything to do with those people. The other thing that came out is that the apology video that Myka and James did, that was forced from their management company. So when that video came out, I'm sure a lot of people, including me, assume that, okay, well, they're going to do damage control, they're going to apologize and, you know, get their side of the story out there or whatever. But allegedly, that was forced by their management company. So it could have been a situation where the management company went to them and said, if you don't speak on this, we're going to drop you. We don't want anything to do with you if you're just going to continue going through life like nothing happened. Can you imagine being so narcissistic and just delusional to think that you could rehome a child and just continue making content with your other kids and think that people aren't going to wonder, you know, oh, isn't a child missing? Like, where is this other child? They were just going to continue to delete comments and doctor, you know, what people were allowed to say and what they weren't allowed to say. That is just like pure delusional to me. I can't make any sense of that in my head, to think like, you have a family channel, you're going to get rid of a kid and just continue making content like everything is normal. What? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this situation with Kova. There was a court battle with, Myka and her ex, where they were fighting over custody of Kova. Obviously, Myka ended up getting custody, but there was $40,000 spent in order for this court battle to take place. Unfortunately, Myka still did get custody, and there's a lot of unfair sort of bullshit that has been coming out with this whole Myka, Kova, and her dad thing. When you're from a divorced household as a child, and your parents are at odds and they don't get along and they don't co-parent and things are really nasty and there might be custody battles and all of that kind of stuff involved, the child is going to do one of two things. They're either going to gravitate towards one parent or the other, or they're going to dislike both of their parents equally because they're constantly going back and forth. One of the things that really hit home for me was that supposedly when Kova is at her dad's house and Myka calls, they have to answer the phone like immediately, or Myka will threaten action because they're not answering the phone or whatever. But when the dad calls Myka to speak to Kova, it's kind of like none of the rules apply. And all of these things can go back to Myka being a huge narcissist. But it really pisses me off. Supposedly Kova is turning into a mini Myka. And I hope that as she gets a little bit older, she will be able to take a step back and look at it and say, okay, this is my mom, but she's wrong. This is wrong, and I don't want to be anything like her. I will tell you guys from my own personal experience, going through something like that as a child myself, I gravitated so much to my dad. Some of you might know, my dad and my grandma basically raised me. And once I got to a certain age, I think I was around 12 when I started to really catch on, I realized that I didn't want to be anything like my mom in those negative ways that I would see her behaving like. I didn't want to be anything like her. I wanted to, take the values that my dad and my grandma were teaching me, and I don't know. I don't want to get too far into it as far as my personal story goes. Maybe one day, but for now, I will just say that I hope that when Kova is a little older, she will be able to take a step back and say, this is wrong. Myka's wrong, whether or not she's a parent or whatever. And she is a compassionless narcissist. Supposedly, Myka also told this person that everything on their YouTube channel is fake. Now, this brought a couple questions up in my own mind. One, where is the entertainment value in faking all of your YouTube videos? I don't understand why that's entertaining to anyone as a subscriber. Now, I think this will be interesting because if she has come out and said, everything is fake, don't worry about anything that you see on video because it's all fake, and she tries to make a comeback to YouTube, what is that going to say to subscribers? Now, when you're watching a TV show, you know that that's all fake. You know that it's scripted. You know that those are just characters and whatever. But people watch YouTube because, I talk about it all the time, what do they want YouTubers to be? Relatable. You want to feel like you're actually watching someone's life, their trials and tribulations, their good days, their average days, and sometimes maybe even their bad days. So for everything to be fake on the Stauffer channel, where is the value in that? How do you get multiple kids to play along if everything is fake? You know, kids are good actors, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how, if everything is fake and phony, how are the kids playing along in all of these videos? Okay, so this is the big bombshell that came out in this interview, and again, I'll link Josh's video down below. I am not going through every single thing that he covered, but the bigger picture. If you guys want to go watch it, I encourage you to. I fully support Josh and what he's doing. Let's see. So this is, it almost makes me have like a pit in my stomach. So when things started to change in the Stauffer household, Kova went to Myka and said, what's going on? Where is H going? Why is he leaving? And Myka told Kova, allegedly, he is going to kill you in your sleep. You guys, first of all, he's 4. He's a small child. Now, granted, I'm sure someone would come to this video and say, oh, well, there's been records of, you know, small children being crazy. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this situation specifically. H was a small 4-year-old. I don't believe that he ever hurt anyone, in my personal opinion. Do I think that maybe he had some bad days? Probably, but that's all kids. That's all kids. Having temper tantrums, crying for hours on end, being grumpy, maybe not getting along with all the other kids here and there. That's kids, okay? From Myka to tell Kova that, first of all, it's wrong because it's disgusting and it's a lie. Second of all, you are instilling in this little girl's brain that her sibling, who had been living in your house for an extended period of time and was part of your family, was plotting to kill her in her sleep. So they had to get rid of him. I don't know what kind of mental trauma that will create for Kova, not only now, but also in the future. But it's absolutely disgusting that Myka would come out and say anything like that. She is absolutely off her rocker. I have heard and, you know, seen some crazy people through my lifetime, whether it be on a screen or in person. Some of the things that Myka Stauffer has said and done are so far out in outer space that I cannot even begin to try to reason with someone who is this off their rocker. So like I said, I will put Josh's video in my description box. The video is 32 minutes long. He covers a lot. I wanted to sort of encapsulate the parts of the video that I had my jaw on the floor and talk to you guys about it. So here's kind of my final thoughts. It is really unfortunate that a narcissist like Myka has fucked up all of these things around her and made all of these really selfish decisions. But at the end of the day, not only, you know, it's not even her who's paying the price, it's actually her kids and the people who have come in contact with her. Think about that person that she allegedly with the medical cart, or you know, family members, friends who she's burned bridges with because of her own narcissistic tendencies. She does not care. Myka Stauffer will come back to YouTube. Whether or not I want to admit that, I know that it's the truth. I'm not an idiot. People cannot let this story go. If she comes back with a pregnancy announcement and showing off her new dog, which allegedly could be her comeback video, because I don't see what else she'll come back with. What, clean with me? Baking, you know, muffins for Thanksgiving? I don't think so. She's going to come back with something that she thinks that people will be interested in watching, but she will also come back with something that is going to garner some sympathy for her. And I think Josh is spot on. I think that a pregnancy announcement is the only way for her to come back to YouTube. So I will continue talking about Myka. I know that Josh will. I know that Sloan will. It's unbelievable what this woman has done. And while I think that a lot of big companies know about her and know about what happened with H, there are also some companies that have no idea. And if she comes back and starts making regular content, there could be companies that have no clue what happened if they don't do the homework for themselves. So people need to continue to talk about her, because it's not only the AdSense revenue, a lot of their income came from collabs. Speaking of collabs, I do want to let you guys know that a couple months ago, I got an email from Lilly, and I was flabbergasted to get this email. So in the email, she essentially said, you know, I found you through your Stauffer videos, and she gave me again the backstory. Most of us already know the backstory of this, but how everything went down with James, and it was completely unfair as, you know, a business owner for her to go through what she went through with James. And she saw Axel in some of my videos. So she said, I'm not expecting you to review anything, but I would like to send you a product to get dog hair off of fabrics and stuff like that. Having a Labrador, I know all about it, and I'd like to send it to you. I don't expect you to review it or mention it, but I want to send it to you. So I allowed her to do so, and I did use it, and I will throw up a little image here. It's actually a really good little gadget to have, especially if you have dogs or cats and you struggle with cat hair or dog hair. I know that we fly through lint brushes in this house, and the lint brushes are very expensive and they're somewhat wasteful. So I really enjoyed the product. Now, I think Lilly Brush is an amazing company. I would encourage you guys to look at their products, maybe get something that would suit your cleaning needs, and leave them a positive review. This is a small business who was associated with James Stauffer unfairly. And I don't like to see that happen. And I really don't want them to lose business or get bad reviews for something that is not true. So I'll link their site down below. And like I said, go check out their products. I'm sure everyone can find at least one product that would be useful in their house. I will also link the specific product that I have been using for Axel's dog hair, just so that it's easier to find for you guys. But I wanted to throw that in there. Speaking of sponsorships and all of that kind of stuff, people have to continue talking about this situation. It can't be let go. It just can't be. And I will be one of those people continuing to talk about things that are unfair and things that I think are wrong. And Myka and James Stauffer are right at the top of the list. So anyway, guys, if you want to watch Josh's video, if you haven't seen it already, I will put it in my description box along with the link to Lilly brushes. It's not an affiliate link. I'm not affiliated, just to help you guys find the website and find the tool that I've been using. If you like the video, please leave me a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.